Escape the alcohol matrix. Take off the band-aid. Take off the mask. Look into the darkness. Feel the pain. And find the beauty.
Break free from the lies. Exit the alcohol matrix.
Re-enter the joyous, vibrant, delicious reality in which you are alcohol-free.
Our guest today is Dustin Dunbar, founder of Alcohol Free Revolution and author of You're Doing Great and Other Lies Alcohol Told Me. Listen in to find a peaceful, smoother, happier path out of their nasty, toxic, numbing land of the alcohol.
The following is my conversation with Dustin Dunbar. There's this sort of alcohol matrix, this set of beliefs, conscious or largely unconscious, throughout society, infiltrating families and individual minds. And of course, this sort of matrix is expanding and contracting and morphing and changing along with, the times as history and culture change. But yeah, can you tell me about this idea of the alcohol matrix and what are some of these unconscious or semi-conscious beliefs that we've held about alcohol for a very long time? And yes, I do realize a lot of these are kind of fading away and changing recently, maybe partly because of work like yours and others, and just people waking up and, science emerging and it being harder to keep people in the dark, But yeah, what are some of these beliefs?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on. And the main thing is that we're in this collective illusion that alcohol benefits us in life in general. And when we get into what it really is, the science of alcohol is that it's ethanol. And most people around the world, and even I, before I really started researching all this stuff, didn't know that this was the same substance. Alcohol is ethanol. And ethanol is obviously car fuel and poison and toxic and causes cancer and all these things. Well, but the big alcohol industry has done such a good job at marketing alcohol to us. And we have this deep 10,000s of years, that was the only thing, alcohol, ethanol was the only thing that killed our pain psychologically and physically. And we used it for everything up until, opioids started about a couple hundred years ago. And until then, it's deep within our collective consciousness. And that is that alcohol matrix that we're in. And so for me personally, I was in a dream whenever I was waking up out of this matrix. I was in a dream and I'm laying on this gurney, hospital gurney, and there's thousands of other people around me, just like the scene in the Matrix. And I'm tied up and I'm plugged into all these tubes, and ethanol and alcohol is flowing through me and flowing through everybody else, and we're unconscious and it's pumping in and out. And I'm starting to wake up and I'm like pulling tubes out of me. And I'm like, no, like get this stuff out of me. What is this stuff? And George Clooney is over the gurney, and the toucan from Guinness and all the marketing execs with their ties on, the Coors Light bikini girls, the whole, the Spuds McKenzie, the Budweiser frogs, everybody's around me saying, uh-oh, he's waking up. And George Clooney goes, give him some more with his Casa, Amigos tequila and looking all dapper and cool. And I am like, get the hell away from me and get this off. And I stand up, and I throw all the tubes off. And that was really whenever I was just like, okay, I'm unconsciously, I'm waking up completely. And even in my dreams, right? And so for me, that's that alcohol matrix. And Catherine Gray writes about this same experience. So I was reading a bunch of people and stuff. She had the same experience and wrote about it in her book, which is amazing because I was in Hawaii at the time and she was in London. And we both have this same, consciousness going on of waking up. And that's what it is. It's like we're having our cigarette moment. Like you were saying, you can't hide the truth for long. That's the Buddha. It's like there's three things you can't hide for long. That's the sun, the moon, and the truth. And the truth is about alcohol. It's ethanol, causes cancer, and we're waking up, and it's awesome to be part of it.
Yeah. Well, was this an actual dream or was this a kind of visualization or hallucination, or what was it?
Full on dream. Yeah, I was literally dreaming, and I wake up out of it, and I'm like, "What was that?" That was, and I had been researching alcohol and what the effects of it, and really trying to get away from it. But that was the one thing that really I was like, "Oh my gosh, my unconscious mind is now combining with my conscious mind that this stuff is terrible." And that was the part where I no longer had that split consciousness that we talk about in psychology. So, and that was the healing whenever it really both sides came in and said, "Okay, we're done with this."
And your conscious mind had already understood that alcohol was bad at this point because you were doing lots of research about the science and history of alcohol. So, yeah, can you teach me some of that science?
Sure. And the main thing that you get to tell people is just keep on saying ethanol. So even like whenever I see bottles, so I don't have any cravings whatsoever. So this is a very different approach from Alcoholics Anonymous AA, and where they're pretty much white gloving it and knuckling it, and every day is a struggle, and they can't really, they feel like they shouldn't go to bars, and weddings are difficult, and it's just like they see it as like diseased for their whole life. So I am a joyous alcohol free man. I have zero cravings. It's the same as if somebody were to a 2 pack a day smoker, comes out of that addiction and goes, "Oh my God, I was stunk. I was spending all this money on it. I had to go outside. I had to do all these things to do this addiction, and it was killing me. I knew I was getting cancer, all these things. Finally, I woke up out of it. Now it's disgusting to me. And you talk to people who used to smoke cigarettes and they're like, oh, they're just smacking their head, right? Same thing with me for drinking ethanol. It's like I was brainwashed. We all came into this world, sitting in front of the TV, and the average 40-year-old in America has seen 5 advertisements per day on TV of how great alcohol is. So by the time you're 40 years old, you've seen like 40,000 ads on TV. And these were, I was sitting there, like I was saying earlier, looking at these things as a kid in front of these TVs, and it's Budweiser frogs, and they're looking fun, and they're having their beers. It's the toucan from Guinness, and it's all these fun, super and then you get into the 15-year-old, and they're sexy, cruise light girls, and so it's this total brainwashing that we've had, plus our collective experience with it being a painkiller, and now we have so much other ways to alleviate the trauma from the past, from our childhood, and things where we don't need ethanol to do that anymore. So that's the point I'm trying to get to. And then the joy, once you get through all that and you get the ethanol out of your system completely, then the spiritual joy that Jesus, Buddha, Prophet Muhammad, all the saints, all the mystics. I have my doctorate in spiritual psychology, and I've studied all the shamans, all the gurus, and they all say you have this inner eternal light joy that you are, that it can never be abandoned, taken from you. But there's no way that I was going to ever access that beautiful light and joy that I am, and feel safe in this world while I was under the influence and under having ethanol running through my veins all the time, because it numbs down your consciousness. It's a depressant that numbs the cerebral, your whole brain, your body, everything becomes numb. And that's what it does. And that's why people are like, they like it because it puts them in this numbing state. So we're just numbing our issues and not dealing with them. So once we get in there and we deal with our issues without alcohol or without some other drug, and we really heal them, then the joy comes through, and it's what I call the hero's journey. You go through it, and then of course you're slapping your head at the end and going, "Oh my goodness, I paid all that money for that horrible ethanol that whole time. I didn't know what I was doing. I did all this stupid stuff. I wasn't present with my kids. Treated people bad. Thought I was being cool. Thought I was being sexy. All these things." And it is funny when you wake up from it. You hear people tell stories about their past alcohol abuse and things like that, and that's whenever the healing, somebody's healed, is whenever they laugh at themselves and the stuff that they did, because they just know they weren't in their right mind.
Yeah, and you say you're smacking your head, and we're all smacking our heads, and I think that's largely true. And I would agree that alcohol is overall not a good thing. There's way too many costs and rewards. But I mean, thinking back on some parts of my, alcohol adventures, say like in my early 20s or something, and going to some of these parties and actually meeting women sometimes, and maybe numbing some pain, some physical or probably emotional pain, some trauma or whatever. There were some there were some good memories. There were some good parts about it, and even going back in history, you said it was actually a painkiller in a way. So I mean, there are some benefits, I guess, to alcohol. You want to say there's no benefits, but I don't know. There's a reason we drink it. I mean, there's some kind of need trying to be fulfilled, even if this isn't the best way to fulfill it. It's doing something, but probably, of course, causing more damage along the way. But what are some of these needs that we're trying to fulfill that maybe we're mistakenly thinking alcohol will help with? Or maybe there are some ways that alcohol is helping, but I'm imagining you're gonna say no to that, and that's actually probably a healthy way to think. And maybe the fact that I'm questioning this maybe means I'm still, not, alcohol free or whatever.
Yeah, so I actually no, I think it's kind of like us using oil for our planet, whenever and fossil fuels to get through, to get by. It's not, the cleanest stuff, coal miners and oil, I've been on oil rigs and I'm from Oklahoma and it's nasty, it's dirty, but hey, it's energy. We did it. Same thing with alcohol. Tens of thousands of years, this was it. And you imagine all the wars without having any painkiller at all. So if you're on the battlefield, yeah, and you're laying there and you need to have your leg amputated, dude, get that bottle. And that's all that's available. But the point is, we're now coming out of that. Our consciousness is evolving out of the need for that, for fossil fuels and for ethanol. Is a perfect example. First time I've done that, and that's our evolution. And so now we can sit there and go, okay, what can we do instead? And so what a beautiful study that they did with you talking about going to bars and things. And I'm like, yeah, what would in my life have been, in teenage years and college and stuff, going to bars where it was alcohol free? I wonder what that would be like. Well, they've done studies where they've taken people and they put them in bars, hundreds of people in bars that are alcohol free, and they didn't know it. They were mixing up the drinks, making them the same, taste the same. They have all the stuff now. They have whiskey, they have tequila, gin, all the beers, the wine, and they were serving them up, and they're all alcohol free, right? The spirits and everything. And they come out the next day and they say, hey, how was your night last night? Did you enjoy your night? And they quiz them all. They say, oh my gosh, this was the best night. And then today I didn't feel anything. I felt great. And they were saying they felt more social, all these things that you want out of going to a place like that. So it's right here. It's in between our heads. That we need this substance to enjoy social times and have a better time. And that's the collective illusion, right? That we're coming out of. And so the biggest point is we no longer need it. And I do agree that I do think we need it. And it is what happened. So it's okay. And there's times too where, and I'm not saying completely alcohol free too. The alcohol free revolution that I have, the nonprofit and everything, it says alcohol free, but what I'm saying is control your alcohol. Like we all have seen the people at weddings who have like a half a glass of wine about every, hour or two. And at the end of the night, they've had like one, maybe two at a wedding, right? And that is what I mean. They don't even think about it. They're not counting drinks. They're not doing sober October. They're not doing all these things. If you're doing those kinds of things, that you have an issue. That is a huge red flag that you are in that mild to medium addiction level and you're on your way to severe. So just know that if you're sitting there going, oh man, I got to take, or like the pre-drink pills, before you go out, things like that, that is red flags everywhere whenever you're thinking about that kind of stuff.
Okay, so you mentioned people kind of holding a half a glass for a couple hours, and that's one way to kind of start to become alcohol free. And maybe there are even more ideal ways, like say holding a non-alcoholic beverage in your hand for however long you want. But yeah, maybe you could teach me about some some ways we can navigate the beginning part of the journey, how we can still be social and meet people and hang out, yet consume much less or no alcohol?
Well, I mean, I just go by personal experience, and then I counsel. I do all kinds of coaching with people, and the keys are to becoming alcohol free. The steps are: number one, get out of denial, and so denial is the biggest thing. It's like, look, if you're having thoughts that you might have a drinking problem, if somebody else has told you to you need to cut down on your drinking, somebody's been brave enough to tell you that, those kind of things. This is the people that I'm talking to, and I'm also talking to people before you get to these points as well. And this is the big point. And then once you're out of denial and go, okay, yeah, I'm starting to have these red flag things coming up, and we all know deep inside that we're having a little bit of cravings. We're thinking, oh, I can't go to that party without drinking. That's getting into self-confidence issues. There's all kinds of things going on there. Or, oh, I need a drink to unwind. Those things, and having other people, pushing other people to drink with you. So then you get into vulnerability and being vulnerable and saying, hey, to somebody else, to getting out there and just being totally honest and saying, hey, I'm having these thoughts, I'm having these feelings that I might be drinking a little too much and I need to talk to somebody about it. And that is the biggest, those two steps right there are over half the battle. Once you've really sat there and done that, and then you've heard all the science about cancer, and then my life was just blah. Like I was 20 pounds heavier, and I was doing everything the same thing that I pretty much do now that I do then. And I lost 20 pounds as soon as I started drinking. My, my energy, my joy, my mind, ability to think, my libido, everything that's good in us was just amplified. And it was like, oh my gosh, this energy is just like amazing. I want to work out. I crave really good foods, instead of the fried stuff after, the hangover foods that we all know, French fries and cheesy stuff and all that. So the whole thing of the steps is it will be this upward ascending joy and energy. But along that way too, in the beginning, is you're removing a band-aid that you've been for 70% of people who are heavier drinkers, they have trauma from childhood. And that trauma, whenever you remove that band-aid that you've been covering, that trauma will come up. And that's what this is all about. Is there's a red light flashing, you need to deal with it. And that, you've got to be vulnerable. You've got to ask for help. Same thing with me. I had tons of abandonment fear whenever I removed the alcohol out of my system. I was like, all this abandonment stuff came up from my childhood that I thought that I dealt with by studying it all in psychology and everything. And it's the old Mark Twain quote: "Don't tell me what books you've read, tell me where you've been." And I got to go into it myself and experience serious mental health trauma. And it was unbelievable. I was like, oh my goodness, it was really difficult. But throughout all of it, I was like, I'm not drinking. I'm not putting that Band-Aid back over this wound. I'm going to leave it open, and I'm going to really heal it this time and really get in there and make it where I don't have to deal with this anymore. And now, that's where I'm at. And that's where I'm trying to share with people is that 70%, yeah, you're going to have that. So just understand that if you've had some serious, trauma in your childhood and stuff, but there's another 30% that don't have any childhood trauma and they're still really heavily addicted. And because this is a 100% addictive substance, that is a big difference between Alcoholics Anonymous and what Annie Grace and we were teamed up. She's the author of This Naked Mind. She sold over 1 million books and helped so many people. And what we are screaming at the top of our lungs is this is an addictive substance. This is addictive, just like tobacco, just like heroin, meth, cocaine, all the addictive things. And we have to stop letting big alcohol put this all over TV as life's elixir whenever it's an addictive substance that has killed. The year 2020, whenever COVID killed 1.8 million people worldwide is what COVID killed. We shut down the entire planet basically for it, all financial systems, all schools, everything. That same year, 3 million people were killed by alcohol related deaths. And so we're sitting there going, how is this substance still being put on TV as like this elixir? And if it was released today and put out there, it would immediately be shut down immediately as like, what is this stuff? Why is this? And then they would do studies on it, and they're like, this is a carcinogen at the same level of cigarettes and tobacco. What do you mean? You can't put that on TV. And all the, in pharmaceutical ads in America. I know you're in Japan and stuff, but it's just like the pharmaceutical ads at the end, they're all like, this will cause vomiting and your whole world will end, but they have to put it all on there. If they did that with alcohol at the end of alcohol ads, there would be this whole huge list of basically death and destruction and cancer, and it would be unbelievable. And I just can't believe that we're still in 2025 and we're still watching all these ads and nobody's really doing much about it.
Yeah, and what of these drugs you mentioned, things like tobacco and methamphetamine and cocaine, heroin, what all these things have in common too is they kind of hijack the dopamine and or opioid system, basically getting you addicted. And so it starts getting me thinking that it's not just this alcohol matrix. There's a wider, larger matrix of sort of this dopamine matrix or something. And once you tap yourself out of this via, like, say, stop drinking alcohol, then maybe other addictive substances, like the junk food you mentioned, kind of start fading away as well. And maybe you start playing on your phone less and looking at less porn, etc. And then there's this other kind of web or something that feels a bit better. It's serotonin. You feel calm. You feel safe. You feel social in the good, non-aggressive, playful way. And so maybe you're sort of switching the neurochemistry of your body and brain, going from dopamine to serotonin, or from fight flight sympathetic energy to this parasympathetic kind of calm, safe, social, relaxed, I'm okay kind of mode. But my point here is, I'm guessing once you stop drinking alcohol or start drinking a lot less, then a lot of other things change in your life as well. So what are some of these other cravings that kind of, I imagine, faded away or were highly reduced?
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on with that. And that's that upward spiral that I'm talking about, that upward higher consciousness. Consciousness is everything. And whenever you are numbing yourself down with, I don't care what it is, alcohol, drugs, sex, and you're numbing out, and you're escaping your pain basically through your addiction, then you're at that lower level of consciousness and you remain there. You don't magically heal. Like, the example I use a lot is, like, you break your arm whenever you're a kid and you can almost watch it like heal in real time. It's like Superman days, where you're like, oh my gosh, it just the universe just heals it. And you're like, wow, that's amazing. With psychological trauma and pain that we get in our lives, it's not that way. And we have to do it ourselves. We have to get in there and we have to go, okay, the red light's flashing. And then if you don't know the red light's flashing because you're on some sort of substance, and most people use alcohol because it's most socially accepted. They're like, oh, I feel like I'm more in control when I can't do other things because it's the easier way. And it doesn't have this smoke around everybody. But that substance is ethanol, and it numbs you down, and it's a numbing, cancer-causing, addictive substance. And so we have to remove it, get in there, figure it out, get healthy, and then the cravings, like you're saying, go from oh, I want to sit on the couch and watch sports all day, not play with my kids, eat crappy food, start drinking again, and just downward spiral to, oh my gosh, I want to get up early, I want to meditate, I want to go surfing, I want to go to the gym, play golf, I want to get out there with my kids and play and throw them around, I want to eat fruits and vegetables, my energy, my libido, I want to have great sex, and it's this beautiful life that. And the funny thing is, the whole time all the advertisements are saying that that's what you'll have if you'll drink alcohol. Drink me, you'll be funnier. Drink me, you'll have more sex. Drink me, you'll be the life of the party. And it's just on and on and on. And so the opposite is just exactly, you nailed it. And that's what we're trying to get to with people. It's that beautiful hero's journey. So get in there, do the work, and try it for 30 days and see how you feel after 30 days. With a lot of people, that's what I do, and then they're like, oh my goodness, this is a whole different life.
And one reason we drink is, yes, to numb this pain and to, yeah, kind of zombie out. But I do think another reason we drink, especially me, is I want to, yeah, crank up that dopamine system and adrenaline to where I'm entering this world of unpredictability and chaos and loss of control and novelty and adventure and new possibilities and excitement and stuff. And when I stop drinking for a long period of time, I do feel much happier. That serotonin high is a lot smoother and sweeter for me. But I do miss those highs, that roller coaster adventure from things like alcohol or chasing women or going on these weird, unpredictable vacations or something. The question is, when you remove alcohol, of course, there are other ways to feel this, novelty and adventure and excitement and stuff. So, what are some alternatives that you found that have been able to fulfill that basic human need of, need for adventure and excitement and a little bit of chaos, and unpredictability in your life?
I love it. And it's that, yeah, I don't, it was one of the great philosophers. He's talking about the mundane consciousness, the daily mundane consciousness.
Yeah, you don't want a boring life. People fear that. Like you said, the word sober, it sounds boring, and that's why you say you're alcohol free. And I think that's part of maybe the alcohol matrix that these the big alcohol sort of set up. They want us to fear our life will become boring if we stop drinking. So yeah, maybe you can shatter that myth for us.
Yeah. So the word, I love that you brought up the word sober. So a lot of people are like sober, sober, sober. So I can't stand the word sober. I am a joyous alcohol free man. And if you look up sober in the dictionary, it stands for somber, subdued, and sedate. And I'm like, that's the opposite of what you get once you get through the healing. You get into those Jesus, Buddha, Prophet Muhammad highs that they're talking about. Like that, for me, that's what we're here on the planet to do, is to elevate our consciousness and to be joy, be peace, be love. And so when I'm traveling around now and doing all the things that you were talking about, from chasing women to what else did you say? Like just being, the chaos of kind of life. I get out there and I travel, and it's like being on the real drug. The real drug is the actual experience and feeling everything, feeling the lows, feeling like, whoa, that really hurt whenever she broke up with me, and like, oh, I thought she was the one and she was so cool. And like, oh, now I'm having these abandonment fears are coming up again. What is this? And just deep feelings, right? And then the opposite of that is this feeling of like love, and you get tingling. I literally sometimes like feel like I'm levitating whenever I'm like, so like it's the real high. So we talk about, you're kind of saying that the high of alcohol, that's not a high. That is a low. That is a underneath low level consciousness. So you're numbing yourself. You are not getting higher. You're getting lower. And it might feel like a high because it's taking away the trauma or the insecurities that you're feeling when you're going to a party, when you're talking to a girl, something like that. But it's not high. And it's just one of those things where you have to look at all those, the real high conscious beings that have been on this planet and say, were they joking? Can I? Am I worthy of getting to that point like they were talking about, that like they all have preached? And yeah, for me, I was like, you know what? I don't think these guys were joking. I'm going to give it a shot. I did it, gave it a shot, and here I am. And it's absolutely a beautiful place to be. And I'm not perfect or anything like that. What I'm saying is I'm whole and I'm complete. And that's a big difference, and you just have this security in yourself, this self-confidence. And so you run around the world and that's the chaos. Is the world is already chaotic, right? It's all nuts. It's the feeling of everything, that intense feeling from way up to way down. And that's the beauty of it all. And I'm grateful for it all. Whenever the negatives come, I'm like, whew, I'm learning out of this one, aren't I? Pain is teaching me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, what do I got to learn out of this? And then the highs come and you're just in this joy and you reside in that as long as you can.
Yeah, that now it makes sense. It's like all this processing power from our body and brain is like redirected to where it's supposed to be, and we can feel things much more intensely and see things that normally maybe we weren't seeing. Say for example, you can imagine you go on a trip to the beach or whatever, and you get hungover. The next day, I don't know, you go on a boat and you don't notice everything. You're just like, ugh. But then you go on the same boat, after, you've been sober, and you can feel the wind on your face, and you can see the people looking at each other and looking at you, and you can taste the food, and everything's just sort of the sensory experience, is just much more intense in a very good way. You're not numb anymore. And then, yeah, some bad things might happen. Maybe you fall off the boat or whatever. This is a weird example, but you feel that water on your body, and you're like, ah, and you get out. And it's just like it's not that, like, life becomes easy and happy, but, you feel alive, and I think it's that feeling of feeling alive, along the whole story that I really like, and maybe that's sort of what you're kind of what you're saying too.
Yeah, it is. And it's the real thing too is the connection with people. So when you're numbing out all the time, you're not getting into conversations at the bar and stuff about your real feelings. And with like my friends, whenever I was drinking, I had drinking friends, right? And a lot of times it'd be like, hey, bro, how much you bench press? That kind of conversation. And now the conversations I have with my friends are like, hey, how are the wife and kids? And I mean, I want to know, how are the wife and kids? How are you doing? How are you feeling? And we get into like this deep, intense, really, really love space of one another. And instead of this surface, that I think every guy and women too, you see it and they're like talking about just very surface type stuff when they're drinking and things. And that is the human experience of what we're here to do, is to connect with others, to love one another as thyself, and to connect. And that's what I'm here now. I'm like, man, all the material things, all the cars, all the houses and all this stuff. The Buddha, he's like, I look upon the finest jewels and the finest clothes as rocks and rags. And you get to that where you're like, you know what, that stuff doesn't matter really. It just, I mean, yeah, it's nice to have, and I love my stuff, right? That's great, and it gives me joy and things like that. But at the same time, it's laughable compared to the joy that that you are eternally. And that's the real jewels that rain down from heaven. And you're like, okay, now we're talking. Now we're in a place of healing, wholeness, love, and we can have these relationships that you could never have whenever you're have ethanol pumping through your veins all the time.
And you mentioned alcohol being this band-aid for our pain, especially our childhood trauma. Once you remove that band-aid, I imagine the pain reemerges. What are some things that you did or that we can do to start to kind of heal that trauma as best as we can?
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about, and here in America, the mental health system has come so far, and there's so many things online that you can do. Um, with Annie Grace and I, first to help with people with the book, we're guaranteeing that if you use her book, This Naked Mind, and my book in combination with both Audible audio and then also print format or digital, for 6 months, and you do what we say in there, and you go through and you don't learn how to control alcohol or become alcohol free, then just let us know and we'll send you all your money back. That's how good we feel about it. And then, so that's for the alcohol part. But then for the mental health and healing part is, yeah, you've got to get vulnerable. That's the key. And you got to ask for help, and you got to start searching online. Okay, I'm getting a divorce and I feel like I have all this abandonment fear. This has happened to me. And I'm getting away from my kids. I'm only going to see my kids half the time. This is freaking me out. I am terrified that I'm going to only get to see my kids half the time. This is like the worst thing ever happened to me by far. And so you start looking around and say, where is the help that I can get? And it's out there. It is absolutely out there. People have different things. They have their churches. They have, if they want to pay to go to a retreat, there's tons of books. There's all kinds of private therapy. There's group therapies. So just know you just got to do your research and do your homework. The alcoholfreerevolution.org that I have has a lot of different things on there, suggestions of what to do. And also YouTube. I've done a lot of videos on YouTube that are free, that are 30 minutes long. And you sit there and you can listen. It's just basically me doing coaching for free. And it's Dustin Dunbar USA is all of the Instagram and YouTube and channels like that.
You also went on what you called a spiritual retreat to Cambodia, and that kind of perked my ears up and lit my eyes up because Cambodia is this very special place for me. One of the, I don't know, most balanced yin yang, beautiful like mixture of light and dark and everything. It was just I love Cambodia. So I'm curious about this spiritual retreat you did there, and what was it like?
Yeah, so I had the same feeling when I got to Cambodia. I had lived in Thailand for a year, and Thailand is beautiful, the land of smiles and Buddhists and all this stuff. But when I went to Cambodia, it was like you. It was like this energy, which is really like super high spiritual energy, and which is really interesting because they just went through a really horrible war where death and destruction was everywhere. So I do feel like it does have something to do with that. But they've also had ancient, spiritual stuff and the temples and all this stuff for a long time. But I think that since they had just come out of that there's a lot of energy around there of peace. And like, we do not want to be doing any of that anymore for a very long time because they learned the hardest way of what war and civil war and genocide does. And so I think that's part of it. But yeah, amazing place. And I have tons of friends there. I spent a total now of about 6 weeks, I think, maybe 8 around there, going through it. And I learned how to meditate really well there. It's all about, they take away digital detox, so no phones, no screens. Waking up at 6 a.m. 2 hours a day of meditation, 2 hours a day of slow yoga, focusing on your breath, focusing on eating. We're very intentional with eating vegan food. And it's really gets us out of this, American mind culture of fast pace. We're looking at our phones, and if our phones aren't on us and we don't look at it every 30 minutes, then something's wrong. Somebody might call us. Oh my gosh, what's happening? What happened in the world? What's going on with Trump? What's going on with Russia? What's that? And it's just like this, your mind is like in this, like we were saying earlier, chaotic place. And what Cambodia did for me was just really made me go within and stay there and really, live my life from the inside out instead of reacting all the time, just being like that. And there's like this solid, consistent, confident, eternal love that is there that I operate from instead of like, oh no, what's going to happen next? And I got to have my phone on me every second and things like that. So, but I love that Cambodia, and it was Siam Reap is where I was in there.
No, Siem Reap is great. I found there's a big lake there outside of Siem Reap, and I found that there's these villages around there, and that's where I found the real wowzer really was for me. And I wasn't at a retreat or nothing, but yeah, I was very, very present. Actually, luckily, I lost my earbuds really early on in the trip, so I couldn't like listen to my addictions of audiobooks and podcasts and stuff. And nobody else was on their phone, so it felt weird to be on my phone. It was just great. People, kids say hi. People say hi. They look you in the eye. It kind of just woke me up and slowed me down. Prior to that, I was in Vietnam and I was blasting through every city, in a day or two. And somehow it was something about Cambodia, the energy there just, or maybe it was me, I don't know. I needed it, but I started to get present and connect and see the beauty. And I guess that's also what alcohol takes away. And then by being alcohol free, we can kind of find that little Cambodia within ourselves or within our own community, even if we're in Oklahoma or Las Vegas or wherever. I've always thought like, how can I take this back with me? And it gets harder when I started to re-enter civilization gradually after that. I went to Bangkok. It gets a little bit, away from that, and then Hong Kong, and then now I'm in Japan. So sort of the opposite, disconnected, not present, running fast. But I guess taking out alcohol, it gets us somewhere there. But this question's a bit not directly alcohol related. But yeah, what are some other ways you found you can bring some Cambodia back into your life, even there in the States?
Yeah, so staying in tune, the present moment is eternally always there. So it's us that gets outside of it. And that eternal present moment always includes joy, ease, and lightness. So it's our fear of the future, anxiety of the future, and depression of the past. We're looking back and we're guilt and shame and things like that. But if we were really in the present moment, then we have this lightness about us. And so if you're not feeling that lightness, then you're not in the present moment. It's really that simple, right? So, okay, where are you? Well, you're thinking about the future. You're worried about it's almost always for me, I'm a future kind of guy. Past, I'm like, okay, whatever. I was an idiot. I let it go, and please forgive me, that kind of thing. And we move on. But the future is like, oh no, I'm not going to be this. I'm not going to do that. And, you have those kind of thoughts. And when I get into that, it's meditation. It's really breathing the nose and the breath. And you can do that. When I say meditation, I'm saying it's more becoming centered. And you can do that through exercise. You can do that through going on a walk. You can do it through just walking out of your house and standing next to a tree. It's that simple. Nature is in the present moment always. It never gets out of it, right? So to be in nature is a perfect way to do it. But for me, it's every morning, I have a hot box is what I call it, my peace pod, and it's a red light therapy infrared. And I get in there and I'm 30 minutes sweating and doing the infrared and meditating. And that sets my day, that sets the tone of the day. And just it's really a simple thing. I'm just focusing on my breath. And thoughts come up all the time. Zen masters, the point is not that you're going to stop thinking. That's not the point. The point is to just be calm and watch your thoughts as they come up and just let them go. Okay, here's another one. Start over. Keep doing it. Start over again. You're going to get hijacked. The greatest Zen masters of all get hijacked all the time with their thoughts. And then you just see them and let them go. But it's funny because you start talking to people about that and to do it, and they're like, "Oh, I can't meditate. I'm way too busy." And I'm like, "That's the whole point is to make you not too busy. Whenever you really slow down and you're in the present moment, you're never too busy, like quote unquote, because you're centered, you're focused, and there's no such thing as too busy in the present moment."
You made a lot of money fairly early on, which helped you retire and now focus on this nonprofit and these books and this mission of getting rid of alcohol advertisements and helping people become more alcohol free. Do you think that alcohol helped you make the money, or do you think it would have been different had you not been drinking? Would you've done better? Because you did somehow, maybe through luck or I don't know, it just that's the way the culture was back then, kind of succeed with or in despite of alcohol. But I know you don't like to look back on the past or imagine what would have happened. But what do you imagine could have happened had you not been drinking?
I love that question. I've been in quite a few of these podcasts and I haven't had that. And I think that I would have been like a Tony Robbins kind of character had I continued on the path that I was getting my doctorate. Whenever I was like, man, I had a big fear of not having money because I grew up so poor, in Oklahoma. And I was like, I need money. And I was like doing this spiritual psychology doctorate. And at the end, basically, I was like, oh no, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to become a monk? Am I going to become a priest? Like, where do you make the money? I'm not licensed. So how do I do this? And this was, a long time ago, whenever there wasn't so much of a coaching culture and all this stuff that we see now. And so, yeah, that's one of my big regrets is not trusting in the universe, because that's where I was definitely being guided at that time, is to do that path. But man, my personal fear was like, nope, we got to go get money. And so, okay, I was like, all right, let's go. Who makes the most money? Sales. So corporate America sales, got into the health insurance business. And that was a culture of just absolutely carnage drinking. I mean, we're talking about we like I'd go on all these CEO trips, around the world with playing golf. And if you're not doing shots of tequila with the CEO and one of the boys, then you're not getting the promotions, you're not hanging out. They don't trust you, all this stuff. It's a drinking culture. And it's that way around the world too. So it's not just, corporate America. It's like you get into business life with men and running it. And that was just it. And so, yeah, it definitely, I think, gave me more money in that business culture at that time. I do think we are coming out of that. I think we've got leaders now in these big businesses and stuff who are not, sitting there saying, I need you to drink with me. It's just like, no, I need you to be an amazing person that you are without ethanol running through your system. And let's make this company better in the right way. So I think a lot of health insurance agents were numbing a lot of pain, and believe me, I know why. Being in it 25 years in the health insurance industry in America is really a difficult challenge.
Yeah, I have a friend, Taiwanese friend. His family owns some factories there and stuff, and he mentions sometimes he'll have to go to China, and then he hates going to China because he's got to drink. He's got to experience that wreckage, but it's part of the deal. His dad's making him go. You got to go and got to do the sales, and that involves alcohol. So yeah, but I think in Asia it's changing, but it seems to be changing faster in the West, where alcohol is starting to people are starting to wake up. Here they are too, but not quite as fast. Yeah, it's interesting how geography plays a role too. Along with tobacco, people are still smoking here, much more than they are there. I guess it just takes time. Um, we haven't really talked about, your drinking habits and your family history, etc., which is a very interesting story. And it's a long story, of course, but I really enjoyed it from your father and your grandfather, and that whole thing, and then, you meeting, like, say, for example, it was girls a lot of times, a girl in a red bikini, and later on a girl kind of luring you back in, these freaking the sirens are coming back. But then it doesn't seem like you had, like, some big crash that woke you up. Maybe you did, but somehow you stopped drinking. So this is a long-winded way of asking, like, what's sort of your alcohol story, starting with, your father and your grandfather?
Yeah, that culture, Oklahoma, the Sooners, the land run. And I mean, you go back to those days and you're talking about difficult times with outdoor farm and everything. So my grandfather as a child grew up in that, and he started drinking whenever he was like, I think 12, 13 years old, moonshine, and being part of that huge farm culture. His father owned a big farm. And then my father also drank, but he didn't start drinking until he was about 25 years old. He was a big time athlete, played Division I basketball, and was also in the military and all this stuff. And then whenever his dream of being a military pilot fell through in the Marines, his eyesight and stuff wasn't right. It really hit him hard. And then, of course, his childhood pain starts coming up, and he didn't deal with that at all. So he started drinking, became addicted. So they both did. And then they both were monsters. Whenever they drank, they were absolute monsters. And they were abusive to my mother and grandmother. And I witnessed my father beating my mother, and vowed at age 7 I would never drink alcohol, because I'm like, man, the guy is cool and fun and athletic and all this stuff whenever he's not on this. And then whenever he's on it, he's a complete monster. What is this? So I was like, okay, then I just won't do that. Well, you get to be like 15 years old and you go to the first big party with the girl in the red bikini that we're talking about, and the peer pressure of like looking cool, fitting in. She's got a beer in her hand. You want to, mirror her, that kind of thing. There's all this unconscious stuff going on. And so, yeah, so I started drinking then. I look back at my, peers at that time that didn't drink, and I'm like, man, like total superpower. The peer pressure is just unbelievable to drink. And it's that question of why don't you drink? And it should be the opposite. It should be, why are you drinking ethanol? Why are you drinking this toxic substance that is the byproduct of rotten fruit? Fruit, that's what alcohol is. It's the byproduct of rotten vegetables and fruit. And so we're consuming this substance, giving ourselves cancer and all this, hurting ourselves. And people come up to you and ask, why don't you drink? And you're like, that is just weird. That is so weird, right? Why do you drink? That's the
What kind of question? How do I answer that?
yeah. And you have to come up with ways. You have to be like, oh, it just makes me feel a lot better. And I do tell people, that's the coaching I do, is that peer pressure stuff is, why aren't you drinking? Why aren't you having fun? And we're like, I'm having a great time. And just because I'm not drinking this ethanol doesn't mean I'm not having a great time. Why? And so just, if that comes up to everybody out there and you're in your beginning of not drinking, just say, it just makes me feel so much better when I don't drink, and leave it at that. And then they're like, whoa. And it's this reverse psychology of like, oh, wow, he feels better when he's not drinking. And basically I'm saying, you need to drink whenever I don't, because I feel great not drinking. So, but so then, you get into the drinking, and then it gets to, high school and then college, same thing, all the parties and the Lambda Chi Alpha and, the sororities and just everybody. It's just part of the culture. And then you get into business, and like we were talking about, you go into sales and like, got to do it. It's part of the culture. It's just, that's the alcohol matrix. We're all plugged in, looking around on the gurney, and everybody's doing it, and so it's this unconscious thing. Then you start having too much pain in your life with doing it and feeling gross, looking at your parents that drank too and going, oh, here I am. And then I started having cravings, and that was the big red flag for me. I was like, whoa, my body is craving this stuff. I'm like, but I thought that only a certain percentage or certain class, like AA says, could get addicted. And that is totally false. And I love AA. This is not a competition to see who has the best program for becoming alcohol free or anything like that. If you feel like you need to go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and say that you are an alcoholic in front of strangers and do all that, absolutely do it. Jump off the roof. I don't care what you got to do to become alcohol free. That's great. I'm doing this as a nonprofit, so I'm not trying to make money or like sell anybody on this. I'm just trying to help people out and get, have them not go through the pain that I went through as a child, and then later with divorce and my kids and being separated and just all the absolute chaos, the real chaos of alcohol addiction and what goes with it. And so the pain was just too much, where I felt gross, 20 pounds heavier. My then, partner, wife at the time, said that she wanted a separation. And I was like, whoa, that shook my world. What does that mean? I just didn't even comprehend it. I was still earning a lot of money. I was still a good dad. It wasn't like I was reaching under the sink, grabbing a bottle every morning and tilting it up. I was very responsible, all this stuff. But I was being very disrespectful to her at parties, saying stupid things that I don't even remember sometimes. And yeah, that is what really just crushed my whole world and got me into that. Also, fear of abandonment stuff that I had to go into and really heal and get in there. And the beautiful thing about that is, once you get in there, what Carl Jung calls the shadow, and it's this fear of darkness and abandonment and all this stuff. And at the end, it's 90% gold is what he says. And you're like, how's that? That's a shadow and it's 90% gold. What does that mean? So get into the darkness is what I really want to tell people. Do not be afraid of the darkness. The darkness is where the healing is, in that silence, in that absolute depth, bliss, bottom of the ocean. Just sit there and sit in it and don't come out and feel it all. And then you realize that there's this light, and you start, this joy, this light starts coming, and you start floating back up because of this light, up and out of the darkness. And you can be anywhere, anytime, and be that light for other people. You can sit in the mud with crap, junk, poop all over you and have this light for people, and sitting there listening to them and being present. and nothing can ever take that away. But if you're doing ethanol or doing other drugs and stuff and you're numbing it all down, you're just going to be in pain, in that psychological, mental pain for the rest of your life. So at some point, might as well do it, right? And get on the hero's journey.
Yeah, I love that you said jump into the darkness. That's something I always say, but I haven't said it on this podcast, I don't think, but I do say it a lot in my everyday life. And if I think back on weirdly some of my favorite memories in life, they were really, really dark times. It's me sleeping with my homeless brother in this nasty place, and looking at my dead mother, and it's very dark times. But if you let yourself cry and let yourself embrace it and feel everything there, it's such a sad, a terrible thing sometimes, but you feel so much, and feeling feels great. Um, a couple other big non-alcohol names out there. You mentioned one was Annie Grace, another James Swanwick. How does your program or your system relate to or differ from these two?
Yeah, I've been on both of their podcasts and amazing people. I love their spirit, their energy, and it doesn't differ too much. I know James, is doing, he was, whenever I was doing it, this is about a year ago when I was a podcast, he's doing it for really high level people and it costs quite a bit of money. But his philosophy and everything, from what I could see at the time, was very similar. I think he had some battle going on with AA people, and I'm like, you guys, we're all on the same team here. We're all just trying to overcome this. And like I said, just do whatever you got to do. Try James Swanwick out. Try Dustin Dunbar. Try AA. Try Annie Grace. Do it all, and literally do it all. And whatever works. Maybe it's the combination. For me, it was a combination of a ton of stuff. I was meditating. I was exercising. I was eating better. I was reading stuff. I was reading Annie Grace. I was looking at all the research from AA and saying, what do they believe in? Get in there, look at it all. And the beauty of it is a Zen quote is there's as many ways to the one as there are beings on the planet. Right. And so there's 8 billion or so people out here, and we're all going to have our own way of healing. We're going to have our own background. People in Japan, where you're from, are going to have a completely different experience of alcohol than mine, from Oklahoma. And that's okay. That's fine. But you got to find it in different ways. The key is to get inside, figure out your way, and come out. And hey, it might have been jumping off the roof. Good job. Who knows?
Yeah, I saw you were also on Janet Garon's Tribe Sober podcast. I was a guest on hers as well. She's great. That's another way. And anyway, thank you for coming on mine. And I really enjoyed having this conversation together. If people want to learn more or connect, where can they go?
Yeah, it's like I was saying earlier. All the social medias is Dustin Dunbar USA, and then alcoholfreerevolution.org, and also Alcohol Free Revolution on all the social medias. Lots of free stuff out there. And then for buying the book with Annie Grace's book combination, you can go to dustin-dunbar.com, and the books are on there. And I thank you so much, Michael, for having me on here. I really appreciate it. Your spirit, your energy, and raising consciousness around the world, even from Japan, all the way from Japan. Good job.
No, no, thank you too. And even just preparing for this conversation and reading your stuff, even in a small way, changed my life because tonight the original plan was I was going to go out drinking with this friend. He found these hot chicks and we're going to have a big party together. And I was getting lured in like, ooh, that sounds maybe I'll try that out. But then it was going to be happening tonight. But luckily, I kind of prepped for this, and I was thinking about all this, and yeah, I ended up canceling that, and which is nice. I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't talking to you today. So, and maybe that's only one night, but hopefully, the point here is the more we kind of maybe consume this kind of information and think about this kind of stuff, maybe it's just one day at a time. But yeah, hopefully, people who listen to this, maybe it helps them at least a little bit, and it helped me a little bit, and hopefully, it'll keep doing so. So yeah, thank you for that as well.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that I had that effect on you. But I also want to tell people that it is, I preach, do exactly your life. Like keep going with the girls and the thing and do that tonight. Remove the ethanol. So go out to the liquor store and get your alcohol-free whiskey, your alcohol-free tequila, your alcohol-free gin, beer, all the things that you would normally do to take over to that party, but take the alcohol-free stuff. And whenever you and just try and then do it and be like, "Oh my goodness, I have my wine in my hand. There's no ethanol in it." And you feel the same. And then the next day you wake up and you go, "Holy crap, Dustin was right. It's a great life and I didn't have to do ethanol." And that's the coolest part. And that's the beauty of now where we're at is because back, 20 years ago, people didn't have all the alcohol free stuff. So my whole fridge and everything, I have a whole bar here full of alcohol free things. People come over and I'm mixing cocktails and doing all this stuff and music. And it's the same exact thing. Live your life, but don't consume the ethanol.
Yeah, you can still have what you wanted, but you don't have to drink the alcohol. You can be alcohol free. You don't have to be sober. And yeah, and you've mentioned before too that most of what these alcoholic drinks have in them anyway are not is not alcohol anyway. So remove the alcohol, it can still be delicious. Especially now, they've formulated some pretty delicious drinks out there that might taste pretty similar. Yeah, this can keep going on, and I think it's time to go. Thank you again, Dustin. I appreciate this, and yeah, see you around.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you.